Good day. Ladies and gentlemen, as you likely can tell from my shirt, I have a rather awesome announcement. I have recently become the possessor of a No.4 Mark 1 Lee Enfield. And no, this price tag that's on here is not actually accurate, but we'll get to that in a moment. Essentially, one of the things that my mother and I do is every Saturday, or every other Saturday, essentially whenever there's a chance on a Saturday, we go out and do stuff together. And one of the things we did a few weeks back, or possibly even a month ago, was we went to a number of pawn shops in search of a Lee Enfield. I didn't really care which mark it was, I just wanted a Lee Enfield. Now, I have wanted a Lee Enfield since I was nary a lad, but I never really had the money to get one. When I actually found one at a gun show, I was $30 short. And so I ended up getting this rifle, the Mosin Nagant. And while the Mosin Nagant is a great rifle, I happen to always have liked the Lee Enfield. Why? It's got a 10-round magazine. It's got, and this seems silly, but well, it does, has a turn-down bolt, and all sorts of things like that. And so, when I found it, it was at a pawn shop called Easy Pawn. And we went in there, and they just so happened to have the Lee Enfield. And it had been marked down to $200. But the story gets even better, ladies and gentlemen. We were actually able to talk them down to $150. And the thing is, this rifle, as we will take a close look at in a moment, is mechanically sound, the rifling's great, and it actually comes with, already, a scope mount, specifically an S&K scope mount, which is one of the higher quality scope mounts out there. Now, I will say this, I want to definitely say that the Easy Pawn staff were absolutely excellent. Everyone in there was very nice. They were all really, really cool. And, as you'll also see in a moment, they actually threw in a free plastic rifle case, which was absolutely awesome. I've never had a gun shop in general ever do that. And the guy that we talked to about the gun actually was a really nice guy. We actually put this on layaway for a couple weeks. And, you know, he actually remembered who we were. And when we got the gun, now in Texas, oh, one thing I want to bring up. I actually have had some comments saying that you can get a gun without a background check. This thing, Curio and Relic. Guess what? They did a background check right there. To say that you don't get a background check at certain places, complete lie. I mean, I've seen it. It just happened today when I picked this up. They did a background check before I could buy what is effectively a Curio and Relic. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, it's not just you walk to a shop and buy a gun. That is a lie. A bald-faced lie at that. Anyway, the thing is, the guy was very cool, and whenever you buy a gun, in Texas at least, they actually walk you to the exit. So people aren't just walking around with guns in a store. So once again, Texas being really stupid and gun happy, well guess what? You buy a gun, they walk you to the exit. In any event though, when he did, and he handed it off to me, it was in a rifle case of course, he actually shook my hand, which I thought was really cool. He was a very, very nice guy. I really like that, whenever there's really good service. So thank you, sir, and thank you, Easy Pawn, for being awesome. And the prices in that shop were actually pretty bloody reasonable, especially compared to a lot of other shops I've seen, especially compared with official gun shops, where they were charging something like $300 for a Buffalo Arms Derringer. My God, ladies and gentlemen, that's crap. So before we take this out to the garage to take a close look at it, there is one thing I want to mention. Okay, so the Lee Enfield is a very famous rifle. You can find all sorts of information on the internet, and I, of course, in the actual review, I'm going to be talking all about it, its history and things of that nature. I've actually picked up a couple of books that are really, really cheap at the half-price bookstore that explain more about it. But one of the things I found, much to my chagrin, for a little bit at least, was taking the bolt out is not easy. There's actually a little thing, and once again, when we do the close-up, you'll be able to see it. There's a little thing you got to depress, and it's a real killer on your thumb. You pull back the bolt, there's a little thing you got to maneuver in there, and then it comes out. One thing I'd just like to bring up, because this is funny to me at least. Here you got the old Vintavka Mosina. It's 48.5 feet long, and one of the things that's cool about the Lee Enfield, at least that one, which is a No.4 Mark 1, is the fact that it is actually about the same size as the SKS, and it's a lot shorter than this thing. But anyway, so removing the bolt on the No.4 Mark 1 is not easy. Now the No.4 Mark 1 Star is a little easier. That one, of course, not really. So you want to remove the bolt on a Mosin Nagant, right? Now on the old Windhofke here, I'm not sure if it's in frame. You pull down on the trigger, pop it out. Very easy. That's one of the other advantages of the Windhofke Mosina. Now for those who have complained about me having this scope on here, I'm actually planning on removing the scope, putting it on there, since that one's already been sporterized. So now, ladies and gentlemen, let's take it out to the garage and see what it looks like. And here we are, ladies and gentlemen, with the No.4 Mark 1 Lee Enfield. And as you can tell, this has been extensively sporterized, which is not that big of a problem for me, mainly because I would have liked it to have had a scope mount and things of that nature anyway. And removing all of that wood definitely, despite this thing not being that long, it's still pretty bloody long. And removing all that wood definitely makes it a lot less heavy than it would be normally. Now, this thing is indeed a actual No.4 Mark 1 Lee Enfield, as I actually have a number of sources that show that this was actually manufactured at Matby. And of course, fans of Hickok 45 will of course know that his No.4 Mark 1 was manufactured there, and I have checked, and this thing actually has all matching parts as well, which is really, really cool. On top of that, I even noticed that there was a proof mark that shows that this was indeed accepted by the UK. So, what do I intend to do to this rifle? Well, first and foremost, I'm going to be putting a scope on it. I'm going to take the scope off the Windhofke Mosina, and I'm going to actually put the original front sight back on that particular rifle and have it be pretty much as issued. Now, as for this one, we're going to put that scope on there, and that's a very nice scope mount, by the way. But also, I'm going to have to put a sling on it. Now, here's the funny thing. Whoever was sporterizing this thing took off the rear sling swivel, and I have absolutely no idea why. I guess he was going to replace that with a more sporting styled one. So gonna have to get that. You can buy those off of Liberty Tree Collectors for a good price, about 14 bucks. Gonna put the other sling swivel. Now there's a few choices when it comes to that. You can of course put a sling swivel that goes around the barrel, and I could do that, but I'm probably just gonna drill into this part of the stock, put one in there like that. At this point, it doesn't really matter if I do that, simply because this thing's already been so cut down and everything. This, of course, is the original stock. Now, one of the things I'm also going to do is I'm going to sand down the stock and either A, stain it, or B, just use linseed oil or something like that. And I just noticed, looks like that's different wood. This wood is slightly darker than this one. So that's interesting. But one of the things I never have understood about these rifles like this is a lot of their fans don't ever sand down the stock. I understand that's for historical accuracy and stuff like that, but once you buy a gun, it's yours. Do what you want with it. Like, actually make it look really nice, and that's what I intend to do. All the parts in this thing are really, really crisp. All the springs are really, really springy, I guess is the best way to say it. This thing, this bolt catch, is a bloody thumb killer, to say the least. So this thing has held up quite well, even though somebody did try to sporterize it. They did a decent job sporterizing it, I can tell you that. Now, I'm not entirely sure if I'm going to make a video series covering the actual, refinishing process. And the reason I don't know is what I want to do is I want to do this with my grandfather, because one of the things I always like doing is refinishing old guns with him. But as you can imagine, he doesn't necessarily want to be in said video. So if he decides he doesn't necessarily want to make his YouTube debut, I'm probably just going to do it with him and then talk about its restoration process in the review itself. Regardless of what happens, I am going to be reviewing this particular rifle. Going to give you guys the history of it, going to explain all the different bits. I hope it to be one of the best gun reviews I've ever done. Now, the last thing I want to point out is the price. On that price tag right there, it says that this was originally $269. Got it for $150. That is why you always shop around, and that is why you always try to talk them down. And so, I am GeneralLotz, and I am highly looking forward to working on this. And I'm going to wish you guys good Lee Enfield and good Mosin, or whatever makes you happy.